Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who changed Europe. He was born on a small Mediterranean island and rose to become the Emperor of France. He conquered much of Europe, redefined warfare, and rewrote laws that still shape our world today. Loved by many, feared by more, this is the remarkable story of Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon Bonaparte was born on August 15, 1769, in Ajaccio, a town on the island of Corsica. At the time, Corsica had recently been transferred from Genoese to French control, and tensions were high. Napoleon's family belonged to the minor nobility, but they weren't wealthy. His father, Carlo Bonaparte, was a lawyer, and his mother, Letizia, would go on to raise 13 children, of whom Napoleon was the second. From an early age, Napoleon showed intelligence, ambition, and a fiery temper. He was sent to mainland France at the age of 9 to study at military academies. Being Corsican and speaking French with an accent, he often felt like an outsider, but he buried himself in books on history, philosophy, and military strategy. He admired men like Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar and vowed to make his name echo through the centuries. By the time Napoleon finished his education, France was on the edge of chaos. In 1789, the French Revolution erupted, overthrowing the monarchy and creating a republic. While the revolution brought terror and violence, it also created opportunities for ambitious men like Napoleon. He first gained attention during the siege of Toulon in 1793. Royalist forces, backed by the British, held the port city. Napoleon, then just 24, came up with a plan to recapture the city using artillery. The plan worked. Toulon fell, and Napoleon was promoted to brigadier general. Just 2 years later, he crushed a royalist uprising in Paris with a whiff of grape shot, firing cannons directly into the crowd. This act saved the revolutionary government and made Napoleon a national hero. In 1796, at just 26 years old, Napoleon was given command of the French army in Italy. He found a poorly equipped, demoralized force and turned it into a victorious machine. In a series of brilliant maneuvers, he defeated the Austrian armies and forced Austria to negotiate peace. The Italian campaign was a turning point. Napoleon proved he was more than just a lucky commander. He was a master of logistics, strategy, and psychological warfare. He wrote proclamations to his troops filled with passion and ambition. His men worshipped him. Europe began to take notice. In 1798, Napoleon set out to invade Egypt. His goal was to disrupt British trade routes and perhaps establish a new empire in the East. While he won the Battle of the Pyramids, his fleet was destroyed by the British Admiral Nelson at the Battle of the Nile. Napoleon's dreams of empire in the Middle East were cut short. Yet, even in failure, he managed to return to France a hero. He brought back not just soldiers, but scholars, artists, and scientists. Their discoveries, including the Rosetta Stone, sparked a fascination with ancient Egypt that endures to this day. By 1799, the French Republic was struggling. Inflation, war, and corruption had left people disillusioned. Napoleon saw his moment. In a coup d'etat on November 9, 1799, he overthrew the government and established the consulate, naming himself first consul. Though he claimed to be restoring the revolution, he increasingly centralized power. In 1804, in a dramatic ceremony at Notre Dame Cathedral, Napoleon crowned himself Emperor of the French. The symbolism was clear. He owed his throne to no one but himself. Over the next several years, Napoleon defeated coalition after coalition of European powers. At Austerlitz, in 1805, he crushed the Russian and Austrian armies in one of the greatest tactical victories in history. He reorganized much of Europe under his control, placing relatives on thrones and spreading revolutionary ideals. He also introduced the Napoleonic Code, a legal system that promoted merit, property rights, and secular law, a system still used as the basis for many countries' laws today. But with every victory came new enemies. Britain remained defiant, and resistance simmered in Spain and Prussia. Napoleon's empire looked powerful, but it was becoming overstretched. In 1812, Napoleon made his greatest mistake. He invaded Russia with over 600,000 men, the largest army Europe had ever seen. But the Russians retreated, burning their cities and leaving nothing behind. After capturing a deserted Moscow, Napoleon waited for a peace offer that never came. As winter fell, he was forced to retreat through freezing, starving wastelands. Fewer than 100,000 men returned. The Grand Army had been destroyed. This disaster emboldened his enemies. A new coalition rose against him. By 1814, Allied forces marched into Paris. Napoleon was forced to abdicate and was exiled to the tiny island of Elba off the Italian coast. But he was not done. Less than a year later, he escaped and returned to France. In a moment of drama, he stood before the royal army sent to capture him and said, "If any of you will shoot your emperor, do it now." Instead, they cheered and joined him. Thus began the famous 100 Days, but his return was short-lived. At the Battle of Waterloo in 1815, Napoleon was finally defeated by the British and Prussians. He was captured and exiled again, this time to the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic, where escape was impossible. On St. Helena, Napoleon lived under constant surveillance. He spent his days writing memoirs, dictating letters, and walking the barren island. Cut off from the world, he faded into obscurity. He died on May 5, 1821, at the age of 51, likely from stomach cancer, though some suspect slow poisoning. He was buried in an unmarked grave, but in 1840, his remains were returned to France, where they now rest in Les Invalides, beneath a grand dome in Paris. Napoleon's life remains one of the most extraordinary in history. He rose from obscurity to become the ruler of Europe. He revolutionized military tactics and reshaped the political landscape of the 19th century. His Napoleonic Code laid the foundation for modern law in many countries. His influence extended beyond borders, across cultures, and through time. Some see him as a tyrant, a warmonger, and a man obsessed with power. Others see a reformer, a visionary, a self-made genius. Perhaps he was all of those things, but one thing is certain: Napoleon Bonaparte changed the world, and his name will never be forgotten. Thank you for watching this deep dive into the life of Napoleon Bonaparte. If you enjoyed the video, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories about history's most fascinating figures. Let us know in the comments, was Napoleon a hero or a villain?